Buenos dias a todas, or good morning, everyone. Welcome to our very first Safari Mack adventures in South America. I am Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Ladies and gentlemen, as I have mentioned in my previous episode of the Magellan Penguin, we have now reached our next continent, South America. We are now at the southernmost tip in Argentina, having made a 2-week-long swim across the Atlantic, thanks to our friends the dolphins and the penguins. But now, instead of focusing on a certain number of animals that have been gained popularity, while we will meet some pretty well-known animals, I wanted to also introduce you to some that you might not know completely about. But more about that later. So, if we're all ready, we are taking to the skies to meet our very first South American icon animal, the Andean Condor. If we're all ready and set and good to go, let's fly. Let's start with their history and their family. Now, unfortunately, it turns out their ancient history isn't really well known. Unfortunately, more research needs to be done. We're not even sure if even the Californian condor of North America and the Andean condor evolved from the same ancestor. We have absolutely no idea. So, more research needs to be done. What I can tell you is they are members of the vulture family. Now, if there are some viewers out here today that do not like vultures and want to skip this episode, that's okay, because I understand that not all of us like certain animals. But instead, we need to probably show better appreciation or better respect for some of these animals. Because let's face it, animals die, and someone has to come along to clean up the mess. And let's think of it like this. Think of many different bodies all rotting together and decomposing. Left on its own with nothing to happen to it, no cleanup, no natural decomposition, unfortunately, it would breed a lot of disease. So it's only thanks to scavengers like, let's say, hyenas or jackals or any others, even insects are decomposed, even fungi. It's only thanks to them that helped remove the mess that we can keep diseases at bay. But, like I said, believe it or not, it's all thanks to scavengers that we can keep our world kind of clean. But believe it or not, despite being part of the vulture family, they only evolved with the New World vultures, as there was no genetic relation with the Old World. So the New World vultures include black vultures, the famous turkey vulture, and the very colorful king vulture. Now let's continue with their habitat and their lifestyle. Now, here in South America, you can find them all along the western country of Chile, as well as parts of Argentina, Ecuador, western Peru, and they've even managed to come to the countries of Colombia and Venezuela. That would be these two up here. However, as you can see by the yellow dots, they are extremely rare up in the northern hemisphere. So it's mostly the western part of South America that you would find these creatures. But now, where exactly do they live? Their habitat is mostly that of non-forested, grassy, mountainous areas, or even just the mountains and cliffs themselves. Usually their day-to-day is constantly flying around seeking out food, in which they will sometimes fly up to 120 miles a day just to find food. But another form of activity that they do is a thing called sunning, where they're just opening up their wings, and not only are they absorbing the warmth that comes from the sun, but they're also, in a way, this is how they can kind of keep their feathers clean from dirt and messiness. Now, typically, males and females are completely different. Males only have a kind of flap at the top of their head, while females lack this. But together, they make excellent parents. After laying only a single egg, The parents spend up to 54 to 58 days each, both taking turns incubating the egg, or nearly 2 months. But believe it or not, here's our first wild thing, and it's a little early, I know, but there will be more to come. When it's time for them to lay an egg, they will not build a nest. Instead, they lay it on top of near a cliff and just keep it protected from the cold as well as from being overheated. After 2 months, the single egg hatches, and by the time it reaches 6 months of age, they're able to fly, but they will not leave their parents until they are at least 2 years old. That way they can learn not just how to fly, but also how to find food and how to attract a mate. It's also thought, like the Californian condor, that Andean condors will mate for life. So, as we know, birds need a lot of food to grow, as well as to power their fast energy moving bodies. So let's talk about their diet. As I've mentioned, Andean condors are members of the vulture family, so they're constantly looking for dead things. However, it has been cited that sometimes, if it's small enough, they will go after very smaller creatures like smaller reptiles or mammals. But that's not always a common thing. They're more likely looking for something that's not going to fight back. So in South America, they usually look for llamas, whether they're wild or domesticated, taruca deer, which is what you see right here, guanacos, which are a true wild cousin to the llama, and because of human agriculture and the raising of livestock, they've also been known to feed on dead carcasses out in the field. But now, that's those that especially live in the mainland areas. Those that are living along the coast, or sometimes they will even migrate to the coast, they seek out dead whales, dolphins, dead seals. They've even been known to eat dead sharks. So usually they need to eat around 9 to 10 pounds to 11 pounds of meat a day just to keep their energy up. But now, unlike most vultures, they do not rely on their sense of smell, but instead they're said to rely on their sense of vision, in which, they have to only use their vision, in which they're able to actually spot their next meal up to a mile in the air, while they're a mile up in the air. But when they do find enough food, they're not going to immediately go down and start eating. Instead, some have been observed waiting a few days for the bodies to soften even further before beginning to dig in. Some even let the other scavengers go in first before they make their next move. Now, let's talk a little bit about their place in human culture. Now, we may not exactly talk about vultures mostly because we associate them as the vermin creatures. But in South America, they have significant roles. Now, believe it or not, the Andean condor, because of their place being one of the largest birds to fly in the South American skies, they are thought to be associated with the sun deity as the lords of the air. They've even been seen as a symbol of power and health because in the past, Andean cultures sought them to find their bones as well as their organs as a form of medicine. In Andean mythology, it's, as I said, they've been associated with the sun deity and even a messenger to the gods. But now, apart from the myths and legends, they've even been featured in comics. One named Condorito is one of Chile's most popular comics for children. They've even been featured in as countries' coat of arms, or even national birds of countries such as Colombia, Bulgaria, Ecuador, and Chile. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that's all the time I have for this week with the Andean condor, but be sure to stay tuned for next week as we continue their journey. Till then, hit the like and subscribe button, check out my Facebook page, and send me an email if you have questions. But until next week, this is Safari Mack, and I'll see you out there in the South American skies. With that, adios.